Mafia. Good morning, everyone. This is Shattered, and I am one of the avatars generated with artificial intelligence by the creator of this channel to comment on the topics of the videos. To answer some comments about why I use an avatar for my videos, the answer is simple. It's a matter of convenience that saves me from having to use a microphone and camera, and therefore having to do a lot of recording before editing the video. Today we are talking about organized crime, and specifically, the Mafia. I will describe how, when, and where this notorious form of crime was born, and above all, why it became so famous, what distinguishes it from other criminal organizations, and what impact it has had and continues to have in the society in which we live. Let's proceed step by step and begin to describe where the Mafia was born. The Mafia is notoriously connected to Italy, and specifically to the region of southern Italy called Sicily. For those who don't know, Sicily is an island, and geographically, it is located at the southern tip of the Italian continent, that has the shape of a boot, and Sicily looks more like a ball that is kicked. To understand why the Mafia phenomenon originated in Sicily, you first need to know a little about the history of Italy. Italy became a full-fledged state with its current borders only in 1861, with the unification of Italy, which took place by Giuseppe Garibaldi, so we are talking about 160 years ago. Before that, Italy was a continent divided into many small states. Sicily, together with the Campania region, the Calabria region, and the Puglia region, were governed by Spain. The phenomenon of organized crime in Italy is actually not only linked to Sicily, but also to the Campania region, which has the city of Naples as its capital, in Calabria, which has the city of Reggio Calabria as its capital, and Puglia, which has the city of Bari as its capital. In each of these cities and regions, the presence of organized crime is very strong, but it acquires different names. In the Campania region, organized crime is called the Camorra. In Calabria, it is called the 'Ndrangheta, and in Puglia, it is called the Sacra Corona Unita. So, to recap, we have 4 different organizations: the Mafia in Sicily, the 'Ndrangheta in Calabria, the Camorra in Campania, and the Sacra Corona Unita in Puglia. Now, it is easier to have a complete picture of the phenomenon of organized crime. But what is more interesting is to note how all 4 organizations developed in the same territories that were governed by Spain before the unification of Italy. Actually, this situation is not accidental, and now I will explain why. The social context of southern Italy under Spanish rule had not developed industrially and politically. The economy was mostly linked to agriculture and cattle breeding. Unlike northern Italy, where the large cities had developed a modern industrial structure, the system of government had remained in a feudal context, where rich lords who owned land had both economic and political power over large areas of territory, and therefore also over the organization of society itself. So, what we are witnessing is a fragmentation of the territory into many areas where each of these is governed by a lord, who also assumes legislative power. After 1861, with the abandonment of southern Italy by the Spaniards, although Sicily and the other regions had become part of a single state, at that time it was called the Kingdom of Italy. In fact, the presence of the state in these regions was almost non-existent. Before the south of Italy began to integrate with the rest of the Italian state, it took many years, and in the meantime the territories, although no longer officially, continued to be governed by the same landowners and rich lords who had already ruled before. What we are witnessing from the point of view of social structure is a government within a government or a state within a state, exactly as organized crime is represented today by social studies experts. In this context, the landowners were also involved in resolving disputes between citizens, helping those who had been wronged by other people, assigning jobs. This is because, as we said before, the presence of the state was still very weak, and therefore the legislative structure was also practically non-existent. The term mafia or mafioso, one who belongs to the mafia, is a term proper to the region of Sicily, the oldest official document where this term is reported, dates back to an 1863 theatrical drama staged in Palermo. In the following years, this form of local government had to face the presence of the state and the Italian legislature, which obviously imposed new rules, and consequently also new opportunities for many citizens, who could become owners of small plots of land and livestock at the expense of the old lords. All this was obviously not to the liking of those who had ruled undisturbed until then, who reacted by imposing themselves by force and illegally against anyone who went against their interests. It was around the end of the 1800s that the phenomenon of organized crime began to be noticed by the Italian justice system. Many individuals who were identified by the justice system found themselves fleeing abroad, joining the large migratory flows that were headed for the United States at the time. At that time, however, the Mafia had not yet assumed the organized structure that would have been the fundamental component that made this organization so powerful and important. The modern structure of the Mafia can be attributed to the boss Lucky Luciano, real name Salvatore Lucania, of Italian origin, but raised in the United States in New York City. Luciano came up with the idea of bringing together all the heads of the criminal families of Italian origin present on American territory and organizing them in a single structure, thus avoiding having to compete in business or wage wars that are costly in terms of money, men, but above all, thus becoming much more powerful even against the law. Luciano called this organization Cosa Nostra, which sees individual criminal families rule over individual territories. But each of these must answer to a higher structure called the mandamento, which essentially groups together several families. And the mandamento must refer to a higher level, which is called the commission. And the commission is commanded by a single head. The term mafia is actually just a popular and journalistic term that is often used in a general way to refer to other forms of criminal organizations as well. Lucky Luciano, who had returned to Italy for legal reasons, summoned all the heads of families, including those from Sicily, to propose to them to form an organizational structure of their activities, copying the same model he had created in America. The Italian Mafia, which until then had maintained a fragmented territorial structure and was commanded by individual groups operating in a neighborhood or in a small town, now took on the name of Cosa Nostra, just like the American one, and always on the same model had assumed the same type of organizational structure that persists even today. The fame of the Mafia is mainly due to the media attention it has received compared to other criminal organizations, both in the journalistic field, but also by the many films that have been produced. Among the most famous, we certainly remember The Godfather, a 1972 film where a splendid cast of actors, among the most famous and emerging of the time, made this film famous, transmitting in the collective imagination an idea from my point of view too stereotyped of the Mafia as fascinating as it is ruthless. The economic power, together with the connections with the public and political structures that this organization has been able to develop and maintain, have allowed the Mafia to infiltrate many areas of the legal economy, thus being able to launder enormous amounts of money. It is said that every year, the activities of organized crime generate revenues of around $100 billion per year for each country in which they operate. Over the years, the fight against organized crime has increasingly intensified, thanks to interception technologies and special laws, managing to reduce its power. However, the Mafia phenomenon continues to exist also, thanks to the ability to adapt to social changes and assuming a more assimilated profile with society itself and the law. The video ends here. If you liked this topic, please share it with your friends and family, thus helping the channel grow. I thank you and see you soon. Goodbye.